I believe it was yesterday, I was called to the bathroom at the cemetery to take care of something. I walked in the bathroom, and in the middle toilet right there, somebody didn't shit in the toilet, somebody shat on the toilet. They shat on the walls, they shat on the floor. I had to clean it up, man, but before that, for about 10 to 15 seconds, man, I just stared at somebody's shit, man. To be totally honest with you, man, it was a really, really profound moment. So I was thinking, I'm 30 years old, and in about 10 seconds, I gotta start cleaning up somebody's shit, man.
Heath Benefield, thank you for coming, man.
I couldn't turn down the appearance fee.
You know, earlier when we were talking out there about the dead-end jobs like that, and you made this mention about how 10 years ago I wouldn't have thought what we'd be doing right now. And that's what I was talking about, this whole anniversary thing, because did you know it was 10 years ago, I went to the prison, I worked at the prison, didn't go to prison. I went to work at the prison. That was September 2008.
Yeah.
So I was doing construction. We were still doing the construction there, and because it made me think about back when getting all the stuff together. I remember joking about when we would be riding around listening to like Rick and Bubba and stuff like that, and thinking like, man, why can't we do this?
Yeah.
Man, what a killer job to sit there and just talk on radio.
Yeah.
I remember doing that as a kid. My parents had a shed in the backyard. I need to have them send a picture of that, and they could probably get like a big poster of my backyard I grew up, and the little shed will be right there, and then it'll be like, "Aw." But me and my best friend Craig back then used to do a radio show. We used to pretend like it was like this, like middle school time. This is back like when we had a big old printout. You remember like the printout computers where you had like rip off the edges?
Yeah.
And big pixelated stuff that you could just print out banners. I don't know what it was. Like we had one of those early Windows programs where you could just print banners.
Yeah.
And so like we were just like, F trees, man, like just printing banner stuff all the time. And our station was like 107.7. The Eagle or something. I think we had an Eagle too. We were one of those Eagle stations. That's 10 years later, man.
And I said 10 years ago I wouldn't have done it.
We were probably, you know, when we were probably sitting there and probably having one of those early midlife crisis moments was probably in February because it's cold. We were doing construction.
Yeah.
And we were probably on the way to work and just be like, why can't we just sit in the sit somewhere warm and talk on the radio?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it probably did happen in February. Have you watched any of the Olympics, the Winter Olympics?
I have not watched none of it. I did watch where they were talking about Kim Jong-un's sister. How the liberal media
Was she there? I heard something about that. Was she there?
Yeah, they're fawning all over her like she's some kind of princess or something, even though she's
why are they fawning
murdering
on her?
people, conspired to murder her brother. And all that.
Well, you know, it's okay if you're the leader of a country. That's what blows me away. I never understood that if, let's say my neighbor goes and kills 2 people, well, we go and arrest him and lock him up. But if you own a country and you do it to millions, everybody's like, we got to be diplomatic about this.
Yeah.
Why aren't we going and arresting that guy? I don't understand. Like, we are the world police, so why don't we arrest them? I had posted the other day online and asked the question, why aren't the North Korean people why aren't they hauling ass now that they're on the other side of the border?
I'm surprised that I don't know if there may have been a few that has. I don't know.
Well, somebody made a good point. They probably said, well, they're probably sitting there with guns to their family's head back home and say, I dare you to run.
Yeah, you can't just run and
That's
leave
probably
and
how
leave
they let them go. That's probably how they let them go at the airport. They're probably like, you know, tell Daddy, have good luck at the luge. Daddy, yay!
Don't mind her, she'll be fine.
And then, yeah, they had to be in the Guinness World Records for the most, the country with the most applauding.
Oh yeah.
They gotta have that record.
They're applauding for their life.
Right, and they're so excited about it, man. They're so excited about it.
They're so excited about not getting shot after the festivities are over with.
Right. Yeah, the overexcitement. And like, if that would be the case though, you would have to make sure that you were on good terms with your Olympian before they, like, you didn't want to be a wife that like got in an argument with your husband right before he left.
Wasn't sure.
Like, yeah. And he was just, he was like, oh yeah, go blow her head off. I don't care. You see him at the ski jump, and they're like, here comes Swoom Swoom. Swoom Swoom's he's hit the top, he's hit the ground,
and there he goes.
He's gone past the judge's desk. He's down the road. He's going past the Kmart.
He just bought a bus ticket.
Yeah, I don't really get into the winters one as much as the summer.
I did as a kid, but I don't really get into the Olympics anymore.
One of my favorite stories, this is probably the last time I really watched it, and speaking of Rick and Bubba too, because this guy, this was like the other day on the way to work, they were talking about, this was actually one of my personal favorite Olympic moments. It was in the 2000 Sydney, and since I wrestled in high school, and this guy, it was the Greco-Roman heavyweight match for the gold. And it was one of the classic Americans versus the Russian. And this Russian guy was, he had been undefeated in 13 years, and he hadn't had a point scored on him in 9 years. They called him like the Machine, the Bear, and all that kind of stuff like that.
Probably named Nikolai.
And I don't know, he had a lot of like K's and V's in his. And probably one of those with like the line through it, the O with the line. Yeah. Why are we, when we transliterate, we use other, we don't have that symbol. I never understood that.
Trying to be.
Yeah, I never understood that. That's when Hooked on Phonics should be occurring, is when we're transliterating. But he was going up against and the American was this good old farm boy from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And he had actually already wrestled this Russian, I think, a couple years prior in the world matches, and had lost to the Russian and stuff like that, of course. Mm-hmm. And so he went out there and he beat the Russian 1-0. And it was like, it was one of the most, it was such a cool story leading up to it, because they said this dude had like the Russian's picture posted all over his gym in his room, like he just obsessed him for years leading up to it. And he beat him by 1 point. It was pretty dang exciting.
What year did you say it was?
That was 2000 Sydney Olympics. Yeah. So they were actually talking about that on Rick and Bubba. And this was like last Friday. And so one of his friends who lived down here listening to the station had said, hey, they're talking about you on the radio. Mm-hmm. And so Roland Gardner called in to Rick and Bubba. And as I headed out, and it was cool. He told about the story and the experience like that, and it was really, he's just one of these good old country boys. Mm-hmm. And man, he's gotten fat as heck now, man. Well, you look at him and like, you don't think Olympian. Mm-hmm. He let himself go, man.
Me with Olympics,
so there's no money in that stuff, apparently.
There's so many choices on TV, and then, you say, well, I want to watch this action movie or curling.
Yeah. Yeah, curling. I didn't even click on it. Somebody, I think, posted about somebody caught doping in curling. That may have to be fake news.
They make him sweep faster or something?
Everything's fake news today.
How do people cheering? They're like, man, that dude is sweeping. You see that guy sweeping? He is sweeping his butt off.
I think that's one of the...
That dude can sweep.
Yeah, I think that's why... I think with most people, that's why the winters are not as popular as the Summer Olympics, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's just shoved in there that just feels like to just fill it up, like the curling. And then there's a lot of stuff that just feels more like X Games, like the snowboarding.
I never understood
You just feel like that should be on ESPN, and you just want to drink Mountain Dew and eat Doritos when you watch that. And that just seems like a very small niche of people.
And which one is it where they ski and then they shoot?
Is it skeet shooting?
No,
that's what
it's called something. Some kind of thon. Ends with thon. But I mean, both of them are nice, but like, who came up with the idea of, I'm gonna ski a little bit and I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot some targets.
Triathlons or whatever, decathons. I don't know how many things that humans got to do.
The Rathathon. Something else.
But it does make me feel about how inept I can be sometimes, where you're like you go 3 days without washing dishes, and like there's people doing decathlons or
training for it right now
for no apparent reason whatsoever, and you can't even find the time because like if you think about it.
Yeah, you're right though. Summer, you got just people running, swimming, jumping, your normal athletic events.
If you think about it, all that stuff is like a bunch of dares. It's like, is that what kind of built it all up? Is like a bunch of dares?
Did beer cause all, half of these? Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it like decathon, it sounds like that only could have started where somebody was like, or
it's not called decathon.
there are those, man. You got a triathlon. There's like ones where you do 3 things. You got ones that do 5. And there's when you do 10 things. I can't remember what it is.
But those are just 2 weird things. I'd be like, I'm going to run a half a mile, then I'm going to knit a sweater.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, it getting, all of it is, even a triathlon. Yeah. But, like, what's the point you're trying to prove? And it had to be, where did it start? Where 2 people were just like, well, I can swim a mile, run 100 yards, and bike 25 miles faster than you. Like, how'd you, and if they did, like how'd they find everybody else was like, oh, I can do better than you, and it's just like got out of hand. That's crazy.
And what kid watches that and says, that's what I want to do right there?
I don't know. But
because these Olympic athletes train since they're 6 years old,
Have you seen that video of the father who does those he did one of those events? He did a triathlon with his son, his disabled son. Have you seen that video? Holy moly. And not only that, but then like the one I saw was done to one of my favorite gospel songs of all time, My Redeemer Lives. And then you're watching this father, because since his son's like quadriplegic. Mm-hmm. So what did they do? It was swimming. He had him tied to a raft, man. And his old father is like swimming however long they gotta swim. Then he had the bike with
him on a raft tied to him behind.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then of course they had like paramedics, all that by as they were going along, stuff like that. But like the dude's doing it, this old man's doing it, and then they had a bike, especially made bike so he could do the bike part, and then he had him in a carriage, adult carriage when he did the running part. Mm-hmm. And he did it, and it's just one of those things where you're just like, you realize how awful of a human being you are. And you're just like, ah. And then you post it, and you're like, this. And then you get over yourself in the next hour or 2. That's how social media works.
That happened to me the other day where a lady in one of the apartments was telling me about her having to adopt her great-grandbaby because her granddaughter got in a terrible wreck, had her face torn off, and just all this awful stuff, and in a coma for 6 months, and now she's brain damaged. And I was sitting there going, my problems ain't so bad,
Oh, am I allowed to laugh at that story? It's always those people. It's always those people that make you feel so bad. Where like, I feel it makes me feel bad in an odd way when you see those people who are all got it worse than you, and they're still like, I'm still happy. I'm still happy, and you're just like,
That reminds me of the Larry the Cable Guy skit where he talked about his sister with all the moles on her. They went to trade day, and the guy didn't have any arms or legs and was all happy, Yeah. See, that guy, he ain't got no arms or legs. He's happier than you are. And so they walked away, and the guy said, you see the moles on that girl?
Oh, that's when we used to be able to take it. Did you hear? I guess you heard Billy Graham passed away today.
99 years old.
So, of course, you'd have to be like, you couldn't let me get to 100, You couldn't let me get to 100. And then you wonder, if we always picture Jesus being so, pious, but how do we know that he's just not like, Matthew, you know what I'm saying?
Let me show you who the boss is.
But then
you
again,
want to be 100?
Yeah. I mean, because he was going downhill for quite some time, so I can imagine I would actually been like, you know, I was ready to go 20 years ago, but you let me stay around, you let me stay around, you let me stay around. Then I thought, hey, at least I'm about to hit 100. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, milestone. Yeah.
Can't much more to go, and no, you're taking me there. So I was talking with a buddy the other day about how when we read the Bible too, we always read the words of Jesus in a certain tone. We picture him as having a certain personality. But I thought, you know, what if Jesus was actually a smart mouth? You know, what if he was? You know what? Because because when you look at the world today, what if he was? You know, at the end of Revelation, he says, "Yes, I'm coming soon." We read it as, "Yes, I'm coming soon." What if he was like, "Yeah, I'm coming soon"? You know, we're just reading it. We don't know. That's what I was saying. Like, he could have been like this dude who was like, the meek shall inherit the earth. But we don't read it that way because, well, there's no Aramaic for, you know.
I mean, he's saying this right now, not me.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's true. It changes the whole perspective, doesn't it? Because you're thinking, what are we waiting on? What are we waiting on anymore? It really felt like about 2 years ago, you can almost feel like the clock, the great clock of time changed. Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, does every generation think that way, though? Like, man, things have got crazy. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I was kind of reassessing things the other day when you kind of see how the state of affairs in the world today do seem at this unique high pitch. You know, it's like everybody's on edge, like everybody's on eggshells. Everything is just like ding, 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 more than it has. I don't remember this way in the 90s.
No.
You know?
Everybody picks a side more
I felt things were more chilled back then. Yeah. And then I can't even say it was like that in the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah, the people would get offended. I mean, that wasn't the case 20 years ago. I mean, you got a group of people now that's just offended by everything. You know?
Well, if you think about big pictures, you say times of empires, because I mean that's basically what America is right now. America is the current empire, right? And I remember seeing this study. I remember reading this back in the 90s. Of there's like 7 stages to empires. Yeah, they go through. You seen that thing before?
Apathy and what was some of them?
There's revolution, apathy, abundance. And you see the stages that even America has fallen through those steps, right? Yeah. Well,
ignorance, I think one might be eventually people get ignorant.
I don't know if that's one, but we're definitely in that one right now. That's the one. We're definitely in that one right now. But you got to think, and then there was also an average of time. I want to say it was like 250 years.
Yes, it was around 200.
Yeah, 220, 220.
We're way past that. Yeah.
We're at that cusp.
And well, I mean, 1776. So yeah.
Not to say it is or is not going to happen, but it made me think about. But back in the past, those lines in the timeline occurred. There was a time that we draw on the timeline that you would narrow down between the year before and the year after, and you wonder what was the climate like. Could the people feel a sense in the air of like, you know, there was just a change in the time? Because that's what it kind of feels like nowadays. It seems like everybody's hyper political anymore. No. I tell you what, 3 years ago people weren't not as hyper political as they were. Yeah. It seemed like about 2016 all of a sudden things started getting kicked off.
I think the media feeds into that, you know, a lot.
Well, everybody, yeah, well, of course, and that's part of, well, they're part of that machine. And that's the weird thing too. When you think about there was a period in my life where I got distant from like the stuff I used to really be into, especially like biblical prophecy and stuff like that. Well, I started kind of digging all that stuff up here lately as I've kind of just tried to slow down and find God again and all that kind of stuff, and then think about how the events that go on, and you try to find, because you're trying to find some kind of reason for either the big picture or your own little picture, and so you go back to, I guess, to your roots and stuff like that. But you can kind of see how, I remember in the 90s thinking about in the prophecy of Daniel about there will be, where knowledge shall increase, right?
Exponentially.
Yeah. And then you think nowadays, man, we're all freaking hooked up.
Oh yeah.
We kind of felt that prophecy was
You can
kinda
know anything now.
and it's at the tip of,
Yeah.
it's at the tip of your finger. And the funny thing is, we have as much knowledge that we have access to.
Yeah.
It's like we are just as ignorant.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how that works.
Maybe it's because you don't have to work for the knowledge. Maybe.
Well, I tell you what, let's get edgy. It's gun control. Everybody's sensitive about gun control. There are some things about people's reaction to this that's pissing me off.
Yes.
What about you?
Very much so.
Oh, Heath, how are we gonna fix gun control, Heath?
Armed people at the schools. That's the only solution.
Heath, the criminals. We need more laws.
Didn't we pass laws to take drugs away? And how's that working out?
I tell you what, you know who I found out? First of all, get rid of the gun-free zone.
That's like please come here and shoot everybody. There will not be anybody with a gun.
I've gotten in arguments about this stuff before, and to me it should be so common. First of all, it started off with...
That's what drives me crazy.
Well, first of all, it started off with the whole Second Amendment issue and what it was there for.
Yeah.
And having to explain people that...
The most simplest things. Yeah.
Well, about the protection from a tyrannical government. And how people act like you're freaking crazy for thinking that. And I thought, isn't that common knowledge?
Yeah, it ain't no more.
I thought that was common knowledge that's what it was.
I guess they think Hitler was an alien or something that, wasn't a real human being. That would never happen again.
Well, they don't think
to our country or anybody else.
That's the thing. For some reason, they think they can't get it wrapped around their head that not in America.
Yeah, that's what they
think.
Ain't
gonna happen in America. Yeah. And you're thinking, do you know how crazy?
It don't happen until it happens. Yeah.
You know how crazy our government has been? I mean, does anybody why doesn't kids watch history, man? Like
Bernie Sanders got how many millions and millions of votes? And admitted socialist.
Well, it sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? It sounds like a good idea. Have everything, but for some reason, when it's time for me that I need to borrow somebody, nobody wants to give me a handout, man.
But when is talking about studying history. When has socialism ever worked? That's
I wish somebody would chip in for my car insurance. Every time about health insurance, chip in for my car insurance, man. Let's all put that into.
Why don't you just switch to Geico and save 15%?
Right. Yeah.
Should I said not said that?
Hey, free advertising.
Yeah.
Maybe I can. Maybe I can save on insurance now. I can call them up and be like, "What I did you free advertising? And you are who? Write this down."
Life with Fife. That's who I am.
Write this down. You might have to put this in specifically because it may not be that high up in the search engine on YouTube. You might have to spell out the whole thing.
There's literally tens of people watching.
Here is the reference code for the video. You might have to find that.
But what drives me nuts is the liberals are so illogical. Their arguments are always emotional. Never anything to do with logic.
Well, guess who came up with the gun-free zone? 1990.
Exactly.
Oh, Creepy Joe. Something else somebody don't want to talk about. Oh, it's all about the kids, huh? But nobody wants to talk about old creepy Uncle Joe.
touchy, Mr. Touchy Man.
Well, and it's funny what we do get riled up about. We get riled up about, all right, for instance, during this argument where I break up, because I think it was one of these musket type posts that I was like, we don't need these kind of guns. It was like an AR-15. We don't need these kind of guns. I said the Second Amendment was for the citizens to be able to protect themselves from a government, and the government doesn't use muskets anymore either. And she's like, she does the whole like, one was like, does the whole I can't even, hit the emojis. They don't know how to make a point. Like,
because it's all emotions. That's why they end up yelling at you or talking over you whenever you watch it on TV or in person. Well, it's all emotional.
It's weird how we put people in the liberal conservative box. Because I've seen the same kind of thing in the church world where like what got me in trouble with church was studying history. The reason why I think about certain things about politics is because I study history. I think people should study history a lot more. That goes back to, it's crazy how all that stuff is at our fingertips.
Yeah.
People have access to figure out all this stuff. You think I'm crazy when I say the government has done some stuff? You just take the time to look it up. It's there. Yeah. I just didn't make this stuff up. You know, there are documents for it. And the funny thing is, it's one of those hiding in plain sight, you know, where they attached the stigma to the idea of conspiracy theory right off the bat. And all that really means is that the word conspiracy theory, when you look it up, means that you just think that a number of individuals were involved in a thing and not just one. So it's a simple definition.
And there's been tons of conspiracies throughout history
that have been proven true.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing too. It's like, it's
because that's kind of what you tend to do when you want to cover up something that you did that was evil. Conspire.
Well, again, we just feel like people in positions of power up there, like, we just don't think it can like all these people don't do those nefarious things. It is humanly possible, man. What makes you think that it's not? In fact, there's so much evidence that they are that way and even darker. But we act like, no, not. We can't wrap it around our brain that our government could be that kind of evil. Yes, it can. You know?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It came out, and here's a good point. Did you hear about the whole when the JFK files were released here lately? It was the Operation Northwood paper that came out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they literally, the CIA suggested plans. It is the definition of a false flag. Because when anybody says false flag, then they're going to dismiss your argument. They're going to call you crazy, conspiracy theorist. The government doesn't do that stuff. Oh yeah? Well, here is a paper that came out, and it's funny how, like, it exists. Yeah. It's out there. You can't look it up. Nobody cares. Yeah. It says that the CIA concocted this plan. Hey, why don't we kill some American citizens, I think with planes, drop planes in Miami or something, and we'll blame it on Cuba. And the only thing that stopped it was JFK said, no, I don't want to do that.
To get the overall sentiment of the people to be toward what you want it to be.
Yeah, but the funny thing,
manipulate.
To get this.
And in their mind, they're thinking it's for the greater good. You know?
Yeah, kind of like what they did in the Gulf of Tonkin, which was also proven to be a false thing. What else did they do? Oh, that they knew about Pearl Harbor ahead of time, and they ignored that on purpose. 9/11, it can go either way. There's whether you believe that they knew it ahead of time and let it happen just like Pearl Harbor, or they were involved with it, which they more than likely were. But it happened, and you bought it hook, line, and sinker. So why? So we can get the oil. And that's the funny thing too. You can trace all the steps of what's going on in history.
Oh yeah.
And you can see
there's all these other countries where people are getting mass murdered by their dictators, and we don't care about that, but we do care about what's going on in Iraq for some reason, you know.
Oh, you didn't even see it on the small scale stuff that we complain about in this country and the atrocities, and everybody keeps talking about, like, people keep whining about slavery, for example. Oh, you really care about slavery? First of all, this country delivered itself from slavery more than any other country in its history, so that should actually be a slap on the back for America. But did you know that slavery goes on today, right now, throughout the world, and nobody cares? So why do we keep arguing about American slavery? I never understood that. We should be proud of that we were a nation that came out of it. No, it's actually going on now. Nobody cares.
And this went on throughout history to just about every race of people in the world has been slaves at some point.
Right. So I mean, that's and again it goes into, like, can we all just follow the history? That's what's so weird too, how we have all this access again to knowledge, yet we all see the history different, which is odd. You think we all can kind of get a collective census to see what's going on here? But you can't. People see everything, so it's like, how do you even figure out how to know what the heck is going on? You know what I thought about the other day? I was watching this fantastic documentary on
Seinfeld.
It was on the Exodus. But they had uncovered, it's all about how like these Egyptologists and they differ on when certain dynasties should be based on certain times and all that kind of stuff. And in this documentary, in this area of Egypt, they uncovered this cemetery. And long story short, there's this special mausoleum, mosque, whatever it is, tomb thing. And inside it, they go through the whole thing about how they believe it's the tomb of Joseph. It's got, the statue's got different features. It's the way it's decorated in there. It's even got this coat with some of the paint is still on there. And you're going through this whole thing, and I'm watching this kind of stuff, and it's fast. I mean, this is a fascinating discovery. Don't ever hear about it. It's just something that could probably, it's proven an old text. But for some reason, I guess it's a tribute to the Bible. We can't. But like
most people are concerned with
it's an old written text.
Most people are concerned that Omarosa is now going to be on the new Big Brother or something.
Right. Yeah. We care about what Omarosa says. Yeah, and eating Tide Pods, stuff like that. Yeah. It's freaking crazy. Like if you ever seen the footage of in the Red Sea crossings where there's horse bones there. And they've got chariot wheels, and it's like
a bunch of stuff just piled up in the bottom of it.
But that guy, like Ron White, I think was an archaeologist's name. He passed away a long time ago. He was ridiculed amongst the people in his field because he was a Christian archaeologist, whatever. But like we're like, hold up, this stuff's in the water though. How did it get here? Is it not odd? It lines up with something, and we brush it off. And there's other stuff that was in the area, pillars that they found, the big altar with the that they think that's where they put the golden calf because it had a calf carving. It was all near in the area in the path. It was fascinating, but you don't hear about it. Then it makes you wonder, because we attribute so much trust to the world of archaeologists. I guess we just assume they just dig up everything.
I don't trust them at all.
And turn everything in, you know? Because one of the things that I used to wrestle with, you say like when it comes to like biblical archaeology, and I want to say it's even mentioned in one of the Gospels where it talks about, I think it's in the book of John, where he had done so many miracles that all the libraries could contain all of the works he did, and along those lines. So it made me think like, well, there should be a lot more writings left over about this guy at the time, this Jesus of Nazareth. Yeah. So why don't we see that? But then you think like, well, who's not to say it hasn't been found? Well, it could have been destroyed. A lot of course, writings and stuff like that could have been destroyed naturally for natural reasons. But then you think there could have been a lot of clues within archaeology that could have proved a lot of stuff on a biblical standpoint. And those jokers could have just been like smashed it with a hammer, you know what I'm saying? And we'd never know. He could be sitting there reading a clay tablet, and it was like, and Yahweh turned to, like just spelling it out, you know, and Yahweh turned to Adam and said, "This is your wife." He just, you know, and it's just, whoa, what the heck? You know, and just,
that's kind of like the flood, you know, the flood evidence. I don't know how many shows I've watched with, you know, just atheist scientists, but they talk about all this evidence for all these floods, but they won't admit that there was one big flood, you know.
Right.
I was watching another podcast with a guy, he had a guest on there showing these huge ripples in the ground up in Wyoming. Yeah. And then almost and then a water-caused tunnel through the rock. It had, you know, he explained was caused by water. Yeah. And he said it never was discovered because you got to be so high up to see it because it's so big. And now they got Google images and everything that they're able to see it. And the guy on the podcast was saying, "What caused it?" And he said, "Huge amounts of water. You know. Yeah. 1,000-foot crests. You know." Yeah. And he goes on and talks about it, but then it never occurs to him, you know, maybe this happened all over the world. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. If you look at the landscape, that's the thing, you know, especially if you think out west, a lot of that stuff, it looks like it can be defined. You think about through Arizona and the way those cliffs just jut out in the middle of the desert, but it could be a large washway.
Yeah, he was saying the water had to be running so fast to cause that tunnel. It's just unbelievable how fast that water had to be rushing.
Yeah. Because it seems like the last great movement right now is humanism.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of seeing there's been such a push globalism, humanism, and us pushing God out. And you almost kind of just feel the banging of it. You know, when they had that conference today with the kids from Florida going up there to talk to the president, and they had the parents talk. Did you hear that thing?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, about the listening seminar session.
And people talking about, like, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to legislate. We got to legislate.
You can't legislate evil away.
And it was weird, and like, it wasn't even just, I'm not even criticizing, I'm not trying to be critical of this particular event. It made me step back from a little bit further and just kind of look at how society is, where it is. Like, we're sitting there trying to govern ourselves. We're asking each other, we're trying to govern ourselves. And God's not in the picture, and we can't even see how that's part of the problem. It's because he's not allowed in the room while we're hollering at each other, govern us, we're hollering at this president, help us. What's Trump gonna do? You know, Trump cannot, the laws don't matter.
Yeah, you cannot stop school shootings. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't stop home invasions, you know. I mean, all you can do is protect yourself. And that's all they can do at the schools now is have somebody there with a gun who can shoot this nut in the head before he kills too many people.
Yeah, that's
all you can do.
Drop the gun-free zone.
Yeah.
Which was started by Creepy Joe.
But liberal thinking is you can keep legislating until you legislate evil away, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
All you do is you create a government so big that it becomes the evil thing you was afraid of to start with.
And I always hate making this classic argument with the liberal, because it sounds like it's something we repeat to death, but we repeat it to death because we really want to hear their answer, and that is, what law is a criminal going to obey? I don't understand.
The definition.
I don't understand the law.
Criminal is they don't care about the law.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Why are you going to make a law?
Well, they think.
You know what stops criminals? Death.
They think that they won't be able to purchase an AR-15. We made drugs illegal. Can you go out tonight and purchase some cocaine or weed or something if you wanted to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could.
I mean, murder's already legal already.
He's still going to get the AR-15. He's still going to go to school. It's just going to be a black market AR-15.
Yeah, I mean, or they'll find something else. You know what else they could find? They could find knives, because
they can make a homemade bomb.
That was one. I decided to counter-argue, and I posted. I think it happened in 2014, where there was this spree of 8 people went stabbing crazy in China. Yeah. Like 30 people got killed, and over 130 got injured. Right? You know what the response was? Hey, that was a terrorist attack of 8 people. Is blah, blah, blah. Stay on topic. Stay on topic? It shows you how... So we don't care? I guarantee you that collectively, if you counted all the single murders on that Tuesday, whenever the school shooting happened, I guarantee you it surpassed the 17 that died at the school. Like, we have a problem with evil, but we can't address it because, again, you know... God's not allowed in the room while this is what humanism has done.
It is weird how the news media flocks to different things like that.
Is what they pick.
Like, why is it worse? And it's terrible for kids to get shot. But how is that any worse than the same day, probably somewhere in America, some woman got raped and throat slit? You know, why are you not going crazy about that? You know. Yeah,
it's what we decide to hype up.
Yeah, at that moment. Yeah.
And right now, you see now, it's a mob mentality. And this is going to sound cynical, but dang it, man, it's true. This mob mentality of how these kids, I think now on April 20th, I think it is, on the anniversary of Columbine, so they're all going to skip school. How many of these kids are really skipping school for the cause, man? It's just like the dang national anthem kneeling thing. It went past when any cause it was about. It became a look at me. This is what this all is.
Yeah, what are you really sacrificing if all your friends are, patting you on the back and everything? You're not sacrificing nothing. You're not risking anything.
We need to do something. We need to do something. I mean, there's so many things. It's so tethered. You take even depression. You take something as simple as depression. Depression runs through my family. All right, I'm not saying some people probably don't need some kind of medication, but you think about how many people probably would just be cured if they just learned how to eat right, get some proper rest,
and deal with their problems,
and have some things going on. Like, because when I feel like when I'm down and out and I'm feeling deep, dark, depressed, I realize it's because I've been eating like crap, or like let's say I feel a little out of sort in life from bills or something like that, just typical stuff, and to realize that like it's not as deep as it is, but we all want to pop a pill. Always want to pop a pill. What good is it going to do? It's going to do nothing. So they're saying,
it pushes your problems to the side. You never have to really face them.
Yeah. And even this kid, because there's too much of a jump. I remember getting picked on. Like, this kid was supposed to be a weirdo. The weirdos aren't like they used to be anymore. The weirdos when we were kids, man, you were just a weirdo. And you got picked on, and you toughed it out. And I knew the weirdos. There was this one kid named Jason. And he was at this youth group that I went to in high school. He was a real hyper kid. And like, I was already in the group of like, don't hang out with the popular kids. Like, we had this huge youth group, and here's my little core,
I was
me and my nerdy friends, and then you had this Jason kid, and like and like we didn't want him around, but like we had to take him in if he had to find a group, because this kid would like, for some reason, I remember like our youth group room was real big and it had these 2 doors. That's how big the room was, and this kid, for some odd reason, like on Sunday mornings, he would just be like, he'd just be running down the hall, just all hyper, and just he'd always have to wear his glasses with the band on him, because I guess he broke them all the time because the kid's popping off on the wall all the time. And but I try to reach out to him, you know. Probably a lot of these kids go crazy because you think kids were mean when we always think how it was when we were kids. I think kids are probably meaner these days because they're exposed to so much. They have no filter anymore. So that may be another reason why these schools...
I think a lot of, not necessarily this, because he was, his parents died and he had a lot of crap happen in his life. But a lot of these kids nowadays are so sheltered and protected with the, the anti-bullying laws and all that now. I think what that does, though, is when something finally bad happens to them, they don't know how to handle it. They've been so sheltered all their life. When we was kids, you used to it,
Yeah. And see, and what's that got to do with taking our guns away? Nothing. See, they always want to holler that right quick when it could be learning how people are not seeing simple things as they may just need somebody in their life that avoids these things down the road. They want to jump to gun control and start making arguments. Meanwhile, all those things get ignored. We're never taught like practical ways to be a human being.
I think there's not as much value.
There should be a class on like, we should probably, they probably did that in the old days, didn't they? Of like, wasn't there like some kind of manner school or something like that? We should probably go back to like, we should probably have a manner class and learn to be like, you know what? We all probably need to learn how. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to talk with Trump. I'm going to say, I got the idea. We need to create the manners curriculum. And kids need to go to school and learn how to just be nice to people and befriend the weirdo.
There's no value for life. Whether there's less value for life than there was when we were kids. People aren't taught to value life as much as they did back when we were kids. Don't get me started on evolution, but I believe that has a lot to do with why people devalue life.
It's kicking God out. I mean,
well, it's saying you're a cosmic accident of chemicals. You're not nothing special.
Right.
So if you killed the other guy, who cares? You're just a bunch of accidents,
Nothing.
What does it matter?
There's no ultimate consequences anyway.
Yeah. No moral authority.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, you feel like you're going down, so you're going to bring the other people down with you when things are...
Because when we were kids, everybody, well, especially me, I'm older than you, half the cars trucks out in the parking lot in high school had rifles in the back of the window. Nobody got shot. Nobody ever got shot. There's guns everywhere.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the 70s and now? It's the people, it ain't, you know. Something changed in the people.
Yeah. Push towards humanism.
Yeah.
And that hopeless feeling that you're just nothing but matter.
It's just an accident.
Because you think about how it is.
Even the universe is an accident, you know, according to, you know, everything's an accident. Everything's random. So how could you have morality in that?
I have to
right
imagine,
and wrong, you know.
I'd have to imagine, and they'd probably argue with you, and atheists probably argue with you, but I have to imagine there's got to be an innate there's got to be this natural response of emptiness to atheism.
Oh, yeah.
Because if because
I don't know how they even get up in the morning.
As a Christian, or as you know, as a Christian and somebody who feels confident that God created this earth, like I still go through my moments of feeling hopeless, because sometimes I do feel like I'm one in a billion, and he doesn't. But I at least acknowledge he exists. So, but I even know in my humanity that comes with a sense of feeling hopeless sometimes. So I can imagine, like, if you don't even feel, but at least I never feel completely hopeless, because I always have him to attach to, right? Yeah. Like at the end of the day, like I still know he exists, and so I never feel zero.
You never thought, I'm gonna live here 80 years and then that's it.
Right.
I can't imagine living life that way, you know. What happens when they get 70? Like, dang, I better hurry up and do everything I was wanting to do.
You know, that is, you know, that's so fascinating. I actually Googled the other day, because I've had the thought before about the time frame that we have. It said like the average lifespan was 79, but if you say just 80 years, and you know, a human being is just allotted an 80-year chunk on the timeline, you know. And in that 80 years, what is the most important thing that soul has got to accomplish? He's got to figure out how that happened, I guess. If there's something he needs to know, and if he needs to know it, how to find it out, and then he needs to get it right before that 80 years is over, because that's going to, I guess, it's got to affect whatever the next step is, right? But then you think about the challenge that is laid out before mankind, because however souls work, or however somebody comes into existence, it's like throwing sand across the board, isn't it? Because let's say at the moment you were born, at the place that you were born, at the time period you were born to, the people that you were born to, all those factors come into how everything is initially going to affect everything else, right? Your world view. So then, and then think about how the astronomical variations to all that scenario, when it is time, place, people, and all that stuff, whenever your soul pops into, I was born in a small steel town in Pennsylvania, 1980 America, right? Yeah. Where were you born at?
Gadsden.
What year was that? But the good old Bible Belt. You were born in the good old Bible Belt, you know. But so, good time period, good place. America, modern age, right?
Oh yeah, I've thought about if I'd been born in 1800s, I'd have been screwed. I mean,
it could have been all kinds of stuff.
My eyesight, you know, I've been just walking around bumping into everything, blind as a bat.
Or if you were born in like the Dark Ages, and
or my appendix, you know, went bad when I was 19, so I'd have lived to be 19. You know, I'd have died.
All those things affect all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's weird.
But then you think within that 80-year time period, the first 10 years, well, first of all, the first couple of years, you're learning how to speak, talk. You're just learning how to function. You're learning how to like control the body, you know. And so all that time, you're not thinking about God and the eternal life. And then when you get, and still in that time, then you started getting into toys and cartoons and friends, and your mind can't comprehend, unless you're one of these special kids who play piano at 4 years old and can speak to angels.
Or unless your parents have taught you this stuff.
Yeah, but either or, your mind doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't
comprehend,
really.
Right?
Yeah.
So boom, you got 70 years left. Right, clock is ticking.
Mm-hmm.
Clock is only ticking if you don't die early.
You don't get hit by a bus the next day.
That's also the variable out that's thrown out there, and so, but then you get into your 10 to 20. Then you're going in through your life changes, and you're hitting puberty, and then you start thinking about friends and the opposite sex and all that kinds like that, and sports and activities, and then you're knowing your likes and dislikes, and then you're in the wrestle with this older generation of people that existed before you, because then you got to realize you're also thrown into a system that's been going on since the beginning of time, where other human beings decided how everything was going to be, and you just got to go with the system that it is. Because do you think I want to work 40 hours a week? No, I can't stand it when you go to these job interviews and they want to know, like, what are you here for? I'm here to pay bills, man. Just get me the job.
Oh, it's depressing when you think about the amount of your life you spend either asleep or working.
Exactly.
And you take out that amount and you think, man, life is
and
really
it's
short.
Such a big priority, because
Life
you know
is
what?
short.
It's an amazing priority, because then you've got to, by the time you're at least 16 and you start working, you start having to prepare of how to live on this planet just so you can have a place to poop and eat. You know what I'm saying? That's all you're trying to do. Is you're trying to poop and eat and get around. But it's so damn expensive to do it, right? Yep. But you got to do it anyway. So meanwhile, while you're trying to survive on this rock under the stupid system that's going on, you got to figure out why you're going on here, right? Because now we're in our 20s, we've got 60 years left. But then you're starting to put that world together. And a lot of this time in your age, you're starting to really think spiritual stuff. But then, but this is really a lot of your ignorant time too. Because what you know in your 20s, as you and I well know, you ain't going to feel that same way in your 30s. That's when I really felt like things got together, was like in the 30s.
That's when I wasted my most amount of time, though.
In your 30s?
Mid-20s.
Oh, yeah, the 20s.
Mid-30s, yeah.
Oh, throw the 20s out. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's the problem with the timeline, too, because your 20s...
You wasted so much of that time. Yeah.
Take your 20s and move them out of here. You ain't learning anything about life. So you've got what? So now we got 30. So what, we got 50 years left before we die? Got to figure out if we got life right? I mean, my gosh, man. It's... Meanwhile, your biggest challenge is, on top of that, guess where you get all your source of information? From other people, whether it's books you read, videos you see, conversations you have, all knowledge we ever had, unless you're one of those people who feel that God has talked to you, but God's never really talked to you like he's talked to Moses, where he's just like, sit down, we're going to chat a while. Yeah. You might feel like at one point, when like Moses and God were hanging out, and Moses is just like, is he ever going to be quiet? And he just decides to butt in. What if everybody in the Bible is sarcastic? And he butts in, he's like...
everybody. Mary.
He butts in, and Moses is like, hey, what, are you writing a novel over here? And God's like, yeah, you ain't writing this shit down? And Moses is like, what?
You know what would be easy to think about? Would be a sarcastic Job. That'd be pretty easy to think about.
Oh, don't even get me started on Job. Oh, if Job knew what was going on. Well, I was talking about Job the other day, man. Job is a messed up book. That's a messed up book. And like, it's one of those things like, God, if I can go back now, knowing what I know now, I'd have some questions. There's some, it's like if for people out there, because I've got some friends who are atheists, if they don't know, Job is a book that starts out with, Satan goes what? Goes to God, and he says, and God's like,
because Job is being the perfect Christian, or not Christian, but perfect son, you know, being obedient, doing everything right.
If you don't know the story, Satan comes to God and says, God's like, what you been doing all day? Like, he doesn't know. And Satan's like, just going to and fro.
Yeah, to and fro.
And who talks like, is that how they talk?
That's
and then he says, Is it God who says? God says, "Have you?"
No, God is bragging you. Have you seen Job? Job's perfect.
He's
my boy.
servant Job.
He's my dog.
He brought him up, didn't he? He says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" That's what we need. Heck, we need to look it up anyway, because then people are like, "That's not what it says." But I know my Bible pretty well.
We can get the comment section going.
Yeah. And then, okay, Lord said to Satan, "Where you come from?" And Satan says, "From going to and fro in the earth."
Did he shake his shoulder?
He did. He said, "Shaking my head."
Yeah.
Shaking my damn head.
Did he slam his hand? As he talked, he said,
I can't stand that. You ever see people that do that? So
oh, I see it every day.
I can't stand it when a guy texts that, shaking my damn head. Are you? I can't picture you, Sean. I can't picture you just. I got this buddy of mine. He's like ex-military. Sean Clark guy I graduated with. That'll be my sixth view. I'll tag Sean there. Hey, I mentioned you in there. In the podcast, and he'll watch the whole thing just to hear it for his name, and it'll end up he's like, "Oh, I wonder what Brian said about me," and it'll be like, "Yeah, you're one of those guys, supposed to be a manly man because you fought in the military," and you're like, "Shaking my damn head."
And then he'll be sorely disappointed.
I hate that little text. Okay, so he goes. The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered?" Yeah, I was right as always.
Oh, I said that. I said he said that.
Well, I knew you were.
He's my boy.
Audience. They're gonna get. I'm gonna have some hate for this. I already know it. And but he says, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on the earth. He's perfect and upright man, fears God. He hates evil." And Satan answers the Lord, "Does Job fear God for anything?" Yeah. And so they start bidding back and forth. Yeah. And then that's what's so crazy about the story, is like. So here's a guy just enjoying life, loving God. I'm skewing evil. That's what the translation said.
He had a wife and kids.
Bunch
of cattle.
Man, just killing it out there. And then apparently...
ribeye steaks every night. Yeah.
Apparently, they have, just like in the real world, in heaven, they have meetings. You know, they have conference meetings.
Sit down.
I guess it's a sit down. And
I don't know, does God sit down?
He's on a throne. Now, is he omnipresent because he has angels everywhere? Because he does ask a lot of questions like he doesn't know what's going on. And I mean that. If we're really going to examine things, I mean, that's truthful. All right? I mean, you think about it. Like, when Sodom and Gomorrah happened, what does he say? He says, "I'm going to go down there and see if what I'm hearing is true. The words I'm getting. I'm hearing reports." That's what he says. Yeah. So is that how he's omnipresent? He's omnipresent because he's got angels, and angels are little snitches. Because let me tell you what, is that all they're good for? Because when I was a kid, I was really into guardian angels. The concept of it, because I grew up in church, which I'm thankful for and everything like that. I'm thankful for having that background because that world fascinated me, and I felt like it, you know, believing in the Bible and knowing God has led me closer to the truth of life.
It gives you a happy outlook on life too.
Yeah, that too.
It does. I mean,
at times, and then it makes you better because you're thinking there should be better gifts.
Yeah.
It depends definitely what church you go to, because if you go to a Joel Osteen church, you're really, really happy about the outcome.
Yeah. Everything's going to be great. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to him.
That old horse-faced pastor there, I tell you what, he is. He's just got like just a worn-out, just chiseled guy. That's a creepy dude there. But
what about the people that's in his congregation when he's saying, you know, your best life now, everything's, and they just being diagnosed with cancer like the day before and give 3 months to live? You know, I wonder how they process that. You know,
it could be he could just be being talked about up at the heaven conference, and he could have been like, "Have you considered my servant Ruth? Ruth's really been struggling with this cancer. Like, she's thinking she's really going to get healed because, like, it seems like God's antagonizing. It's like, have you considered Job? Dude's pretty dang straight." And then Satan's like...
But we all go through crap. And to be fair, Job had never went through crap. Now, the crap he goes through, though, later...
talk about devil's advocate.
But the crap he goes through is a little extreme. But yeah, he had never really had...
Well, think about what you just said. You just made the devil's argument. You just said... the devil said... Yeah, but he ain't got nothing. He ain't got no problem with you. Of course, he's doing good. So why you? And like my problem is like, why y'all even talking about this? Why are either one of you picking on this man? You know, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you picking on this man? Leave him alone. Who are you trying to prove? Because that's what's like. What at the end of the day, what are you trying to prove?
That's what I'm saying, because everybody goes through stuff.
Well, here's the
so it
funny
was
thing.
only fair for him to go.
So then what happens? He gets what? He
gets boils, which I've never had boils, but I don't think they're probably any fun.
Yeah, he got like leprosy. He's like
yeah,
sitting
like
around,
boils all over his body,
digging
itching,
off the stuff with clay,
pussing
broken.
going everywhere.
Yeah, you want to talk about just that, because there's no medical field that day.
There was no cream to put on it.
And then they're talking about like, he's just like at the end of it, he's just saying, he just cursed God. Well,
no, his wife tells it.
Yeah.
First he gets the boils, and then his kids die. I think one at a time, like one by one, they start dying. His cattle starts dying. Always, his wheat burns up or something.
And see, that's how you know the story's accurate, because that'd be just like a woman, where like, because anything that takes, his attention away from her, because he's over there just like, you're more than those clay pots scraping your pus than you are to me.
See, he didn't say anything bad. It was her that said, why don't you just curse God and die?
And he's got friends coming over, and they're trying to reason with him. And the funny thing is, it's a story of a bunch of people down here who have no idea what's really going on. They're all trying, because their ceiling of knowledge only goes so high. So it's just a bunch of people trying to help other people and be like, I don't know, maybe it's like this. I don't know what's mean like this. Meanwhile, above the earth, you've got these beings who are just like, they're just like playing poker with us, rolling dice. Because God's like, because they come back 3 times, man. Come back 3 times. And each time it's like they up the ante, where God's like, all right, you can have the cattle. And it's like,
but you got to tell the ending of the story, though.
Oh, leading up to it, the big chunk where God.
No, even after his wife tells him, to curse God and die, he still tells her to shut up or whatever. He still stays faithful.
No, but here's what's funny though. Are you talking about at the very, very end?
Yeah,
because what's interesting is the chunk in between. After all that, talking about when Job finally talks to God, right? There's a big, long period in that, and then he gets into all this. Then God goes on this long diatribe of, "Were you there when I made the foundation?"
Yeah. That's where he mentions the dinosaur.
Well,
that ought to get people going.
Isn't that kind of weird? It's like almost God's coming down on him, like, "Who are you? Were you there when?" It's like, if I was Job, I'd be like, Hey, what's going on? Of course I wasn't. Why you, wait a minute, what point are you trying to make? Are you coming down on me about something again? Of course I wasn't there. I didn't say I could do anything. I didn't say I was bad. What are you doing? Like God's just like, about the Brontosaurus?
Behemoth.
Footnote, elephant, you know what I'm saying?
Was not an elephant.
I know. I love that. They describe this whole thing, and they're just like, I think it's a hippo or an elephant.
Elephant's tail is like this long. The tail waves like a cedar in the...
Yeah, come full circle. We talked about archaeology last time, where, like, again, you think about the stuff they've already found. Yeah. They found human footprints with dinosaur footprints in the stone. It's like, it's in stone.
And they got to find, like, a self-portrait of a human and a dinosaur, like...
Well, that's a funny thing, too, because, like, there is this fascinating picture. They used this temple in one of the Tomb Raider movies.
Oh, you're talking about... Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
In Cambodia?
Yeah.
Have you seen that picture?
Yeah.
I'm going to definitely put it up in
you're talking about where it shows they drew pictures of all the known animals.
And they had a stegosaurus.
Yeah. And then it's just thrown in there.
I'm putting it in post-editing right
because
here.
To them,
the audience is going to see this picture.
Yeah, because to them, that was just another normal animal.
Well, the thing is, too, the only reason they could carve something, because any 5-year-old would point at it and be like, dinosaur. It was like, that's how it's carved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks just like it. Yeah.
And the only way it could have been carved that way is that they had actually seen the thing.
Oh, yeah.
But once again, we don't talk about that in science. That's what's so crazy. No, it's a conspiracy. It
goes against the fossil record, which is a bunch of crap.
I know. Going back to how, like, we already know how certain science works. When you look at the fossil record, that doesn't occur anywhere outside of the book of their geology book.
Geological column.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly exist on Earth in that order. But when they always like how they jump from like brontosaurus to birds, is because that's how it's buried, right? Well, yeah.
Yeah, if they ever admitted there was a flood, then it would all fall into place for them.
Yeah, well, that's how they would divide if it was a flood. The heavy animals would have drowned first.
The birds would have flew around.
Birds would have floated around. Yeah, it's any common sense. It's, no, because we can't say there's a God. And then we come back full circle again with the gun control. We can't have gun control. You know what? Speaking of Kent Hovind and creation, I remember back in the early...
You haven't even mentioned Kent Hovind and creation.
Well, creation.
To the audience listening.
Yeah, to the audience, yeah. Speaking of, that's he had made a note about how, I think in 1963, somewhere around there, where they ended up taking prayer out of school.
Yeah, showing the graph and everything.
Yeah, how that went down, and just so happened a lot of moral things within our society, teen pregnancy, drug use, suicide, coincides if we get rid of that moral compass, that God. That's what kills me too. People they act like you can't bring up the God thing because they automatically think that you want to push Christianity down your throat, and you don't have to admit that there's a God and have to jump to Christianity. That's why I could always understand the agnostic. Yeah. But I never could understand the atheist. Mm-hmm. I can understand the agnostic saying like, okay, I can believe a higher power made this, but I don't know which power. How to know?
I don't have enough information.
I can understand that honest question because it's an honest question to say like, how do we know which higher power? But to say,
I know there ain't
no higher power. First of all, I like the argument. You have to have all knowledge of the universe to be able to know that.
And he said he made the point that even if you knew 90% of the known knowledge, maybe God exists in that 10%
right.
that you don't know.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. To be able to make that statement, that means you know everything of the universe. Well, you don't. And to why you have to, but you think you'd want to have someone to answer to.
And if you look at the mathematics of the Big Bang and all that, it's ridiculous, like these. Well, I know I'm wrong. The number is something like 9 different things had to happen simultaneously, and each one happening at all mathematically is like 1 in a 50 trillion or something, and then all 9 of those happening at one time it was like a 1 with trillions of zeros behind it.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Well, a lot of Christians will want to jump to the argument, they don't want to believe in God because they don't want an answer to God. Oh no, forget that argument. Like, because they feel like, hey, I live my life fine. Yeah, okay, you live your life fine. Well, wouldn't you want to meet a creator? What good is it anyway to deny a creator? If you ain't worried about how you live anyway, then he may be accepting of how you live. But wouldn't you like to meet the creator? But there's such a push away from it. Like I don't understand why God's a negative answer. They act like if you're trying to solve the riddles to life and you can't. Like a lot of these scientists.
I don't understand why people don't honestly want to know, why am I here?
You're right.
Yeah. You think of an atheist standpoint, there's no meaning to anything. So you just live your 80 years and die. You would think they would lead just crazy, selfish lives. Just I gotta get everything I can get for 80 years, and because I'm gonna be gone.
Right. But even they would say like, well, no, you're gonna have structure in society to make it work. Okay, well, why? Where does structure come from? Yeah. You're immediately already need.
Who decides what the structure is?
You immediately already need a desire of order, and yet you still keep. And as you see in everything else in life, you see order. Yet you ultimately think order came out of chaos, which doesn't make any sense.
It has never been proven on this earth to ever be true that order ever comes out of chaos.
Never happened. Yeah. It's never happened.
Well, like evolution depends on helpful mutations, and we've had years and years of science that says no mutation has ever been helpful. This happened that we can study.
Right.
Yeah. But yet, that's what comes.
Right, because if it's all about getting bigger,
it goes against science.
If it's all about getting bigger and better and the strongest survive. Well, first of all, I could have used that ape strength, that would have been awesome. Or at least that tail or something.
Yeah, I like to have a tail.
Or whatever answer that had better vision or something. Definitely height. That would have been great.
And what if you had a tail and other people didn't have a tail? See, that'd be cool. You could brag about your tail.
Then you'd have to accept them. You'd have to accept them. That's what we'll have to talk about next time. What do we need to talk about next time to get people? Hey, so many things to talk about in this world. Yeah. You got and like trannies is one of them.
Oh, we didn't get into that. Yeah.
I mean, you still got to talk about the trannies. I hate that we felt left out, and that's the worst thing because they have been the ones really feeling left out lately. Yeah. So sorry that we made you feel left out, but we hoped you enjoyed the show enough that next time we'll talk about you guys.
Mm-hmm. And girls or
girls
or girls
See,
or girls like
right.
a cross, right?
And two spirits in the A's and the I's. Mm-hmm. In the there's one called kink. There's a K in there, and it stands for kink, and that actually sounds like an insult. Like you'd think like, "Hey, who called me a kink?"
Yeah, it sounds like
somebody wants to be called a kink, and I don't even know what that is.
I don't know.
And then one's queer, Q for queer, which I'm like, which defines as weird and like
strange, weird. Yeah.
You all should be Q. You should just make it Q, because it's all weird. But that's not hate speech.
We didn't have one Seinfeld reference in this whole show.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Because let me tell you what, I'm going to see if I can get them on the show.
I'm not gay.
I'll see if I can get them on the show. I have, because I know a trans who has a crush on me, so I'll see. It's one of those things like, does it make it right where you're like, hey, I got a black friend. I can make that joke. Like, is it one of those things like, I can kind of say that stuff. I know a trans that likes me. Let's see. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, there you go. See, that's how you work in Seinfeld.
You missed mine. I said, I'm not gay. Remember that one? Well, I'm not gay.
Of course not. Anybody else's sexual preference is nobody's business but their own.
but I'm not gay.
Well, Heath, man, thank you for doing this, man. This has been a blast.
Checks in the mail?
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail.
I need to...
I'm all about the money.
That'd be a good song to lead off on. Have you heard that one from Weird Al?
Checks
in the mail. Hey, you're beautiful. Don't ever change. You know what I mean.
My girl will call your girl. We'll talk, we'll do lunch. You'll leave a message on my machine. So, baby, won't you sign on the dotted line? It's gonna make your dreams come true. The check's in the mail.